Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our last day of Midwest Design Week. This panel today is going to be Café con Chisme. It's a behind-the-scenes look at Hispanic Heritage Talks of 2020. My name is Vanessa Flori. I am with the AIGA Toledo chapter, and I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Let me pull this up real quick so you guys can see it. So I know we've said this a couple times this week, but really we couldn't have done it without all of our sponsors. We really appreciate your support and for making sure that we can deliver great content to our communities. So thank you again from each of our chapters. And I'd also like to go ahead and introduce Rosanna and Ashton from AIGA Cincinnati. They will be our moderators for today's event.
De todos lados, eh?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so awesome. So excited to be here with all of these talented ladies. My name is Ashton Span, and I am the co-vice president for AIGA Cincinnati and one of the organizers of Midwest Design Week. Rosanna?
My name is Rosanna Rosemine, co-president of AIGA Cincinnati, also one of the organizing members of Midwest Design Week.
Hi, I'm Ximena, president of the AIGA San Antonio chapter and co-organizer for Unidos and Hispanic Heritage Talks.
Hi everybody, I am Reina. I am from the AIGA Orlando chapter where I work with the Women Lead Initiative. And I'm also one of the co-organizers of AIGA Unidos.
Hi everyone, my name is Dio Jensen. I am the treasurer for AIGA Atlanta, and I'm also one of the co-organizers for AIGA Unidos. Thank you for having us.
Awesome. No, so happy to have all of you here. And I'm really excited to kind of go ahead and dive in to getting some more background on AIGA Unidos and all of the hard work you guys have been doing. Just for everyone else's knowledge, we're just kind of have like a casual conversation about how everything got started. And then Rosanna and I were also gives a little background on Midwest Design Week, because we, when we were first getting together, we saw a lot of parallels on how both organizations, were collaborating, especially in the space that we're in. So just wanted to give everyone a heads up on how it's going to go. And any questions you have, go ahead and drop them in the chat. Okay. All right, let's get started. So for our first question, can you all tell us a little bit about AIGA Unidos and the 2020 Hispanic Heritage Talks? Like, what is it, and who are the organizers, and what are the, or the other chapters that are involved?
Reina, do you want to go ahead?
Oh, yeah, sure. So AIGA Unidos is a multi-chapter collaboration wanting to create a space to empower and highlight all the Latinx and Hispanic creatives in our communities. So AIGA Unidos started last year. Well, we met last year at last year's retreat in Atlanta, where we kind of just, by chance, the last night, we, after like the closing remarks, the San Antonio president at the time, Anthony, he spoke out and kind of like rallied up all the Spanish speakers, all the Hispanic, Latin American people. It's like, hey, let's get together, let's meet each other, and all of that. And it's kind of started like as a dream of like, oh, let's collaborate, let's make things happen. And then, like a year later, we have like a full-on month of events, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, but the interesting part is that we all met a year ago just for like a day, maybe two, and it was just a few hours. And we were like, yeah, we should do something. It would be great. But we really reconnected about 2.5 months ago, maybe 3 months. And we were like, okay, maybe we should do something, you know, let's go for it. And it went from like meeting these amazing creatives, these Hispanic Latinx creatives, just like one day, 2 days, to then talking with them every single day to create this event. Like with Ximena and Reina, we're talking all day on WhatsApp, just texting each other, going all the way from like when we wake up until 2 a.m. saying like, okay, is this ready? Is this ready? Are we missing anything? And like a friendship was like, the seeds of friendship were born at the leadership retreat. And after reconnecting, we have become family because we're just with each other all day, even if COVID and, you know, being in different cities do not let us be together. So I just love how this Unidos has become a family for us. And then the chapters that decided to join us, they have become family too, because we also didn't, well, I didn't know much about other chapters except for San Antonio and Orlando because of Reina and Ximena. But then when we started throwing the message out there, it's like, hey, come join us. We're thinking of getting something together. I started meeting just new chapters, new people, and we have just all connected so much that it's beautiful to just see all these new friendships flourish, and the amount of work that we have done and the speakers that we have been able to bring because of those new connections that we have made. We're truly lucky to have been embraced so lovingly.
Yeah. Yeah. And it started with 3-4 chapters and we went up to 13, right? We've got, besides San Antonio de Orlando, which we were the ones, you know, getting everyone up and running and moving. And then, you know, we have Dallas, Houston, Detroit, Austin, Jacksonville, Connecticut, Gainesville, St. Louis, Miami, Kansas City. Just in a matter of like a week or two, everyone jumped on and you know, it wanted to be a part of it, which is great. And I know there are more people that wanted to and just couldn't. And so we're looking forward to the coming months and years to get more chapters involved one way or another.
So which one came first? Was it AIGA Unidos or the Heritage Talks?
Unidos.
Okay.
Unidos, yeah. So we just knew we wanted to do something, that we needed to get together and just do something, put something together. We had no clue what that was. We found that first meeting recording and we were just talking, like we didn't know, we were just talking about a bunch of things and we're like, well, let's do something. What is it? You know, San Antonio already had a conference at a much smaller scale. Orlando had been planning to do something in Spanish and just, you know, more like a conference as well. And then we're like, well, let's do a thing. Since we're all separate, we can use the advantage of, you know, everything going virtual now and connect and actually collaborate with other chapters. Because when we met, it was like, oh yeah, Orlando, you're doing a thing. Yeah, San Antonio's doing a thing. You know, like, okay, cool. Let me know how it goes. And then we can exchange tips. And that's about it, right? It wasn't really a lot of collaboration. It's like, it's great that you're doing. Let's kind of help mentor each other out. But that's about it. And here we can actually come together and work together and make something happen. And so we just started like, whoa, we need a name, right? Our party needs a name. And that's when we went with Unidos. And then we're like, well, are we just doing things or do we do one kickoff event? We're like, well, let's go big, Hispanic Heritage Month. Let's do a series of, you know, 1 talk a week or something like that was our plan. And then it just exploded into, we've got like between 3 and 5 talks a week, depending for the whole 5 weeks. So it exploded. It was way more than we were planning, but we are really, really happy that it did.
So it sounds like, so last year's retreat, that was pre-COVID, right? And then I think that was a period of time, it sounds like, where you weren't maybe connecting as much, but it's probably in the back of your minds, and then you reconnected, and then COVID happened. Like how, what caused any changes in how you communicated, how you plan? Like talk through what kind of went through your mind when COVID happened.
Yeah, so after the retreat, we created like a group text on WhatsApp, and we kind of like kept it going for a few weeks. Every so often, someone would send something, say, "Hey, miss you guys," maybe connecting through social media, things like that. But then after most people went virtual, that's when we kind of, and I think it was just like from our chapter and their chapter, just like individually thinking, we've been like thrown into the space, and that sometimes feels like super daunting. As far as I know, like our chapter had never done any kind of virtual event before. And then like it just kind of like happened. We had this Slack channel in the AIGA main Slack, and he said, "Hey, do you guys want to meet? Let's kind of like plan, like just like a Zoom, just like let's catch up, see what's what." And then we realized that maybe the reason why I mean, it's not maybe, it's true. Like, as much as you want to collaborate and kind of like do something together, the fact that you're like, a couple of time zones away kind of like makes it impossible. Like we have the spirit is there, but it's hard. But like now we are not restricted by anything. So I think that's when we decided that it's like, let's just do it. Like we don't have to ask permission. Let's just, the passion is there, the like hardworking people are there, and I think the need for connection is there, and I think that's been like the biggest driving force. Because like how Dio said, like truly we talk all day, every day, like first thing in the morning, last thing at night, like we get good news, we get bad news, we share with each other. And it's, I think, if we hadn't been thrown into the virtual space, like, I don't think it could have ever happened to this scale that it has happened.
Say, I know, I definitely agree from a Midwest Design Week planning standpoint. I feel like everything having to go virtual kind of pushed us. I know at least for AIGA Cincinnati, like we had not, I think we did Portfolio Day was our first ever virtual event. And I remember when that came up, I was like, we're just going to cancel it. I don't know. It just seems like too much, like, and very too much overwhelming. And, but as we kind of got things going, remembering that we had made so many connections with other chapters that were, pretty close to us, that we've been trying to collaborate with them for years, and it just nothing had ever quite worked out. We're like, oh, people aren't going to be able to make the drive all the way to Louisville or Indy or anything like that. And it really definitely just pushed us in that right direction. And it's been great, though. I think it's been a really awesome experience. Like just meeting, at least for the speaker workshop committee, we have been meeting like weekly, like since like June or May. And these people I didn't really know at the beginning, and now like we're like almost like a family. I think earlier someone said like, oh, it seems strange to not have our normal touch base like we do. And that the time is finally here. So this might be like probably the only positive thing that's really come out of COVID so far, at least in my opinion. But it's been really, really great. So it's awesome to see you guys have that same experience of pushing you and really being thankful for the opportunity.
Yeah, it's really been so COVID hitting has been difficult, and it has isolated us physically, but it has connected us so well through technology. And if it wouldn't have happened, then I'm not sure how all this, Zoom events would have been quite popular. We're all seeking connection now, and we're trying to, just reach out and communicate with people, and we're doing it through the computer. And I think it's just wonderful that, Midwest Design Week is happening, that we have Unidos. We are truly lucky that we live in a time where technology lets us do this. And the very interesting thing about us doing these events is like, I had only done one event in my life prior to this, and it was just one day of events. This is like a whole new thing. And Reina, I think Reina she didn't have even an event done, right?
Yeah, like I help out, but I've never coordinated like an event myself. So I was just like, like literally just like, let's jump in the deep end, let's do all the things and figure it out as I went.
Yeah, and Ximena, you had done some planification for that, right?
Yeah, we did. I mean, we've had several smaller events in San Antonio, and then for Somos, our conference that aligns very much with what Unidos is doing. It was at a much smaller scale. San Antonio, I think we got like 30 to 40 people out, but the people that were there enjoyed it. But it was interesting, right? It definitely coordinating venue and security and this and the bar and the drinks and the lunch and that whole stuff. It's a different set of challenges, and virtual definitely doesn't make it easier, you would think, but all of that coordinating and the technical difficulties and making sure, and like we've been trying to figure out Zoom and what the best way for registration is, and then especially with 13 chapters, each has their own way of working, right? So it's been really interesting, but like Reina and Dio were mentioning, it's tough times, but it's great that we can connect, and I think we've been making the best of the situation, and whatever happens after that, I think we're here to stay. Just as far as virtual events, right? Midwest Design Week, that can still happen, like that collaboration, right? Like you have chapters so close. We in Texas, we've got several chapters and we don't collaborate as much as we should, and we're a few hours drive away, right? It's just mental barriers, right? That, oh, well, like, yeah, we'll go see them later. And now we can actually come together and do things. And I think that barrier has been lifted into, we're like, oh, well, we don't have time. Well, yeah, just jump on a Zoom, like you can do it, right? And so we can, it's a good thing. And we've also gotten this expanded our visibility, right? San Antonio gets people from other states and chapters, but as well, we've gotten people from Mexico, from Argentina, Colombia, Venezuela that have joined our events. And to me, that's great. And I think that's something that we should keep doing, right? Whether we go back to in-person events sooner or later. I think keeping this would be great, just to keep us connected with everyone else. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the really cool things that I start seeing in our Midwest Design Week Slack too, where we're getting all of these creatives from the different Midwestern regions. And I think when we did just Cincinnati Design Week, it was really just strengthening the Cincinnati creatives. But now we get to really connect to our neighbors, and they're not different from us. We're all just like doing our best, using design as our superpower. It's really cool. I think with on the topic of connection, so you mentioned that AIGA Unidos started with 3 or 4 chapters first, and then now it's like 13 chapters strong. Like, how did that happen? Like, with the starting chapters and then adding that on, like, how did that whole, how did AIGA Unidos evolve like that?
So the first 4 chapters that got involved, we were the ones that met at the leadership retreat, and we were still through WhatsApp, but then the WhatsApp had, died down a little bit. And then when we got back together and decided to, let's go for this, we went to Slack and we went to the general channel in AIGA, in the AIGA Slack. And we threw it out there. It's like, if anybody wants to meet, come join us. We're open to everyone. And please join us to see what we can do in the future. And first we started as Habla AIGA. And then once we got a name, we got renamed to AIGA Unidos. And the first meeting that we had, and we actually documented it and had minutes for it, DFW, there were like 3 people from DFW joining us, and then there was San Antonio, Orlando, and Atlanta. And then the second meeting, once we kept writing everywhere on Slack, join us, join us, join us. It was just lots of messages in general, wherever we could get in DEI. And people started joining. And I guess people just kept talking to each other. It's like, hey, there's something going on here. We should join. And we had then like 5 chapters, and slowly, little by little, we got to 13 chapters. And I love that they believed in this, that they saw the opportunity that it was needed because representation wasn't out there. And once they heard of AIGA Unidos, of what we wanted to do, even though we didn't know exactly what it wanted to be, but it was to give a voice to Latinx and Hispanic creatives, not just designers, but creatives. People were just fed by that energy, and they just wanted to be part of change. And then through the meetings, when we just kept growing and growing, we just made all these new connections, and they just, with them, brought ideas, brought knowledge of technology, connections to speakers. Without the chapters, we would not be able to have what we have today. They made this possible. They believed in what we could do. They put their effort into it, and we didn't spend much time in planning. It's like, we're going to do this. We need to do this now. And with the help of everyone, our organizers, our social media team that didn't exist, but we just created it like that. Our speakers, our chapters, and also our sponsor, Typecraft, which gave us in-kind donations. We were able to create this. And again, we didn't know Typecraft before, but through one of the chapter connections, we were able to connect with them. We've been really, I wouldn't say lucky, but we have been blessed, I guess, by just the people that we have been able to reach out to. And really, this is all about people power, because we have only spent maybe $40 for the website, for buying the website name, or maybe even that. Less than that, Ximena?
Yeah, I mean, the domain, because it AIGA Unidos, so it was like $5 or $10 or something like that. That's it. So
yeah.
So it just goes to show, right? It's the power of people, right? Of course, when we move along, you get sponsors, and you can definitely achieve much more with it, right? But it's an enhancement. It's the fact that we were able to put this together with just people, and the excitement and the energy and enthusiasm from all of these chapters, right? And I think it just clicked with people that, like Dio said, representation, and we were missing that. So just putting the word out there that we were doing something, people were like, oh yeah, like, that's great. I wish something like this was done before. Like, even when we met in Atlanta, it's like, hey, like, like, Dio's like, wait, you speak Spanish? Like, I didn't know we were here in AIGA. And I've heard it in different places where, like, it's like, I love AIGA, but I don't see, like, well, speak Spanish. Like, I'm the only Latina or Hispanic. I'm like, in San Antonio, we're lucky that it's just basically Mexico, right? But you go to other chapters, and there's still, we're everywhere, and some people did feel isolated, and a lot of people have reached out to us, like, that they really appreciate and looking forward to this collaboration, what we're trying to do, because it just connects with people. That need of connection is inherently human, right? And so I think that made it easier to get people to, like, hey, we want to help, right? So it's been really, really, really nice to watch and have people join and get involved and excited.
Yeah, I think that representation point is really huge, because that was what we really wanted with Midwest Design Week. Also, we got together. It wasn't just enough that we got together and got to do this together. It's more like, what are we even doing for the communities that we want to serve? and we had a huge goal. We think it was a really huge goal of making sure that our speakers were diverse, at least 50% BIPOC speakers. Pretty sure we did that. I think we got like a little over 50%. So yes, but it gets tough too, especially when, and just to be super transparent too, like our boards are made up of a lot of non-BIPOC board members. So how do we make sure that all the things that we are presenting, that we are offering and providing, they are also for the communities, they're for all the communities equally, as justly and fairly as we could give it to them. And I think for me, being a person of color too, and being in the president role, those roles are typically have term limits. And so what happens when I roll off? What happens when I'm not part of the board anymore? How do I make sure that the board sustain itself in a way that continues to give back in this very, in a very equal way, equitable way even? So there was a note from Nick in the chat that says, wow, 13 chapters. I know the wrangling it took to keep 4 chapters organized, so that's super impressive. And so I'm really curious to even understand like how 13 chapters can get involved in an event. Like how does the distribution of the work look like? Who's leading what? Yeah, how did that work?
I mean, it was hard. I don't think there's like a way to like sugarcoat that at all. I think I think it was great that at the beginning we started small, just kind of like, I would say like the core chapters towards the first few weeks even were like, you know, maybe like 5 chapters. Sometimes we would get joined with like new people, but then they wouldn't come out the following week. Oh, let me just say that I think since July, we've been meeting every single week. We have like standing meetings every Thursday, saying like, yeah, we're gonna meet for like an hour and a half. And some of the meetings go like 4 hours long because we're just kind of like, it's like family reunion every week. And I wish I was lying, but like we have all the recordings, all the like minutes of the meeting. Like we truly went all out. But I think, you know, starting small at the beginning, you know, we were just like a few people, and you know, we kind of like Ximena, she's like amazing at doing web, so she kind of like took on that project. Dio, I mean, like an organizing goddess. Like she kind of like kept us all in line. She took those like Google Docs and like, you know, created a whole like universe for us to keep organized. We had, again, at the beginning, we had Michael from DFW. He helped us with, you know, like design work, creating templates, you know, all of us figuring out what the branding is going to look, what works, what doesn't work. And then I think once we started kind of like putting stuff out, you know, kind of, you know, we're meeting every week. Every week we're going to tell everybody, this is not like a private thing. This is not a very kind of like exclusive club. Like you don't have to be like Latinx or Hispanic to join or anything like that. It's like we want to make something cool and we want everyone to join us. And like little by little, people were coming. And as we went along, I am not a huge planner myself, but it's like we started like figuring out, okay, maybe let's create some deadlines. Like people are gonna reach out to speakers. Let's figure out what the speakers are gonna be. So we were learning as we went along, and thankfully things happened like kind of like in phases that it wasn't like as overwhelming in terms of handling some stuff. But essentially the way that we were able to divide the work was that each chapter, and even some of our events, are multi-chapter led. Those are the chapters that are responsible for, the hosting of the event, the handling of the tickets, the handling of like setting up the Zoom. And then we provided like templates for them to kind of, put the artwork, the pictures, the text, the info, like all of that. And then like we would get those things back, and then like we handled the like I created like the social media schedule. Then we put like a call for social media people, because we realized that like, Ximena, Dio, and I like couldn't handle it. We need to like delegate. We need to kind of divvy up the work, because on top of organizing all these chapters, each of us are also working on our events for our chapters. So it's a lot of like, how like trying to organize and like have strategies so everything makes sense, so we get everything on time, and that we are giving each of these events and each of these chapters kind of like the limelight, helping them succeed as much as possible.
Yeah, and so I want to add three things. So, Reina was talking about what we did, like Ximena, she built the website from scratch. She designed it, she coded it, everything from scratch. And she was working on her birthday until 3 a.m. trying to finish the website so we could have a place where people could go visit and purchase tickets. So she kicked ass. I mean, amazing, like, and the website looks beautiful. So, wow. And then Reina, she created the logo and created the branding and all these beautiful backgrounds that you see. That was Reina. And like we started a little contest within the first 5-6 chapters saying, okay, you know what? We should do a logo. We should do our branding. So we submitted our stuff, but then Reina's was so amazing. And our logo, it's actually, Reina want to talk about our logo and our branding, how it represents us, Unidos?
Oh, yeah, sure. So the logo, I was inspired by like pre-Columbian Mesoamerican art, especially, kind of these like concentric, like monolinear patterns that you would see. And then, I also wanted this, like we took a long time kind of, like nailing down what our mission was, our little, our elevator pitch, if you will, of like, why we're doing this. And to me, collaboration was always this thing. And then in my head, I'm like, okay, we're part of, AIGA at large. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, I do like the AIGA pink. I also like the teal, but I think the green is really nice too. And then I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I don't want to choose. So like literally our branding has I think it's like 12 different swatches, maybe 10 different swatches. Like that's our branding. Our branding is every color of AIGA, because it's like, if we're gonna talk the talk about, including as many chapters as possible, it's like, then I'm gonna like walk the walk of like, everyone is represented there somehow. And, I kind of, after we picked my logo, I was like, okay, now I'm gonna have fun. Everyone's been like commenting on our backgrounds. You can find them on our Linktree link that we put a little bit ago. And I'm like, I sat down one afternoon. I'm like, I'm gonna make the weirdest, most colorful like things. And it was like, I think it was like my, outside of the collaboration and the hanging out with these people like every day, all day, it's like, it was so much fun. It was my favorite part to do.
Yes, and I mean, it's all about, sorry, sorry. I just wanted to add that it was about, her logo, it's about Unidos for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have that hashtag, Unidos. So at first we had Unidos for AIGA, but then a friend of ours, actually a friend of Ximena's, brought something up. A friend of mine also brought something up. It's like, is it just for Latinx people? I was like, no, not at all. This is, Unidos is for everyone. That's where the hashtag was born, because we just want to bring our heritage forward, offer it to the world, so they can learn about designers, not just designers, but just creatives. Like we have a chef, we have an activism panel, we have educators, an educator panel, a student panel, we have musicians, we have illustrators. So what we really want to do is shine a spotlight on them so people can learn about the amazing treasure of creatives that we have that hadn't been seen before, but were always there. All this time they had been there. So yeah, we're Unidos for everyone. And I just want to say that please join us. If you are interested in joining us as a speaker, as a contributor, as hashtag, not hashtag, /volunteer, we just want to connect with everyone. You don't have to be Latinx or Hispanic. So I know that we have Hispanic Heritage Talks going, but we want to create events in the future. You know, we want to have not just events, but any other kind of programming that can serve the Latinx Hispanic community, but also to provide knowledge of our heritage to the world.
Yeah, you actually answered my question before I asked it. So I was going to bring up that it ties back to the word itself, Unidos, because it means united, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think you also touched upon a really strong point too, because you said, you kind of listed out all these different professions that Latinx and Hispanic people are in. And I think that resonated with me too with Midwest Design Week, because I wanted to make sure we didn't bring diverse speakers just to talk about diversity, because we are so much more than that. And we're in all these different spaces with all these different interests and all these different expertise. Like, I want to bring in diverse speakers, and I just let them speak about whatever they want, because I want them to speak about what is the most important to them, what really makes them who they are. And sometimes that could be in that diversity and inclusion and equity spaces, but other times it's just lettering. It's just like all this like interest that is personal to that person. Like, I want all of us to be able to speak to that. So I think the messaging of AIGA Unidos is really, really cool, really resonates with me a lot. So I know we're
hold on, sorry, Rosanna. I know Ximena wanted to talk a little bit more about like why San Antonio decided to get involved in and everything behind that. So I want to give her a minute to talk about that.
Thank you, Ashton. Yeah, I just wanted to, kind of jump on what Dio said and Unidos for everyone and why we did it. And it goes back to representation. And I just like to tell the story because it also came full circle this year. And, before Unidos, before we met, when San Antonio decided to do a conference to highlight, Hispanic and Latinx creatives in general, like Rosanna said, right? Not just design, because we all influence from each other. I studied design here in the States, and same Maria, who's another board member, and somehow we found a design conference in Guadalajara in Mexico. And we were like, hey, like design in Spanish, what? Like, as being born and raised in Mexico, but it just wasn't what we were seeing, right? You're like, oh, this is great. All the headliners that you see at AIGA conference, how it's always the same people. It's great talents. You love seeing them, but it's always the same people. And when we saw here, it was a small conference put together by a group of people that they all went to Cooper Union, but they all came back to Mexico and they were doing their own thing. And it was a lettering conference, but they put their own thing together. And there was the amount of talent that we saw, and we were like, these are our people, right? We grew up here and we never looked back to see what they were doing, and we don't see it here, right? You know, in San Antonio, you do see more the names, but it's not the people that are showcased nationally and internationally. And so to us, it was a big eye opener, like, wait, there's designers outside of the United States, right? And outside of New York, which seems somehow we forgot about it, right? And it's, so we came back with that energy. It was like, we need to do something. So we started just with San Antonio, highlighting our local speakers with the idea to bring other national and international speakers that were Hispanic and creatives. And then when we met in Atlanta, Reina and Victor were like, yeah, we want to do, you know, something similar, AIGA Español, we want to highlight. And it just, you know, it was an eye opener that being born and raised, and we still forgot, because it is what we see. And I love the full circle, because our first speaker in San Antonio, I actually met at that conference. And when I saw her speak, I was like, I don't know if you speak English, but I want to bring you, like, you need to come share your work and your stories. And she does speak English. She actually works in New York now. And it was a great talk. And I just love the full circle of that conference where I met you is where this idea started. And that's something that stuck in my mind. They're like, we need to do something. And then it just connected that I wasn't the only one with an experience like that, right? People have had the same different experiences with people they know. And we forget to look at something else, right? We're so used to the main things you see, what people push, and we need to do our best to find that talent, and not just Hispanic and Latinos, right? Students, like up and coming designers, right? Give them that space to be up in the front since the beginning, not just when, right, they make it in a few years, they'll be in the big conference, right? It's giving that space to people and letting other people know that, hey, we're here. This talent is here. It's not just this one that you see. So really looking forward to, I think that sets the stage for a lot of what we want to do, right? This is our big event, but we definitely want to keep moving and have different types of programming, resources, anything like that, and definitely collaborate with a bunch of other chapters and organizations as well. Thank you, Ashton.
Yes, of course. No problem. Yeah, I didn't want to forget. I was like, I know that she's got something she really wants to share. So I think so we're getting close to time here. So I'm going to ask I'm going to propose one more question to everybody here, and then we'll go to Q&A. So, you know, attending BIPOC, you know, led events, you know, put on by organizers, you know, like by Midwest Design Week and AIGA Unidos, you know, is a good start. But, you know, what can other people out there continue to do to uplift BIPOC designers in their communities, you know? And as a part of a BIPOC community member, you know, what is important for you to see in those events that they're putting together?
I mean, I think, and it's me again, I'm sorry. But kind of going with what Rosanna said, right, is just giving that space, and it's not just, right, it's giving that space to people and not like, oh, let me find this person because we need D&I. Like, we're not checking boxes. It's just being aware of other people and other talent, whether it's in another profession, whether it's another culture. You have to look around and look outside of your circle, right? And try and find that talent. You know, that good music, indie music, or hidden illustrators that you find. You need to look for that if you're interested, right? So I think just keeping an eye out for the variety of talent we have, creative, profession-wise and culture-wise, and then just giving that space is like, hey, you have a cool story about, you know, come tell it, let's share that. And it's not like, oh, I need, you know, the check boxes, come talk about the difficulties in your life. I'm like, no, come talk about how great you did and how, you know, your talent, like whether you're from wherever, it doesn't matter, right? It's just so giving that space and making those connections between people as well, I think helps without it being like, oh, I have to check a box.
Mm-hmm. And I want to add to that you do not need to be part of an organization to make change. Each one of us has power within to create change. So in your Instagram, in Facebook, or whatever social media platform you use, share the spotlight to any Hispanic, Latinx creative that has inspired you. Share it with the world, because now that technology let us share things easily, please just if you have a favorite musician, just on Thursday, on Monday, just shares like, this is my favorite musician. He comes from Argentina, he comes from Colombia. And maybe a favorite painter that you have, just share it with your friends, share it with your family. And you can create change from there. So believe in the power that you have. Like, I didn't think I could make change myself, but believing that Unidos could be created, believing that our voices need to be heard, needed to be represented, led me to these amazing women with me. And because they also believed in that dream that it could become a reality, they put the effort in and it came true. And here we are today in front of you, surrounded by all these amazing people that wanted to hear our voices. So I guess at the end it was true. Our voices do deserve to be heard, and you want to hear it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I think for my experience, it has been always, organizations or groups, things like that. They always have this kind of exclusivity to them, and always like, oh, I don't know if I'm part of the cool kids club, or the people that are making things happen. And for me, kind of, one of the revelation has been that it's like, well, forget that. I am my own cool kid, and whatever good I do, I'm gonna embrace my people. And if I'm going to the top, all of us are going to the top. And I think that that's part of, I don't know if it's like part of our cultures or what, but it's kind of like, we want to see like our people succeed. And if I think for me it's been kind of like life changing being part of AIGA, because it has made me a leader. And maybe this is like a cheesy word to describe yourself, but it's like I do know that I have certain amount of influence for my community, and I'm like, what I need to use that for good. I need to fight for creating a space that represents like the talent that is in my city. And for example, one of the things that in the back of my head kind of like wanted to kickstart this AIGA en Español thing, was meeting another Venezuelan illustrator in Orlando, that she would tell me that it's like, yeah, I want to be more involved, but there's a language barrier there. And I'm like, well, that's messed up. Like, that shouldn't be the reason why you're not involved, because your work is amazing. Your ideas, the way that you think, the way you approach problems, it's like, I'm learning from you, and I know our whole community can learn from you. And like, language is just, like, that can be handled. We can get a translator, or we can do closed captions, whatever it might be. Like, that shouldn't be the problem. That is just an issue that can be easily solved. But for me, it's wanting to, it's like, if a space is not going to accept us, or include us, like we're not included in the canon, we're treated as like novelty, then I'm like, I'm gonna make a way cooler club, but everybody's invited, regardless of whether you're Venezuelan, you're Latinx, you speak Spanish, or you don't, because I think it's, those are the dumb barriers of like why are you stopping great things from happening, when it's easy to just be like, hey, extend the hand and be like, how can I help you, and that's, at least for me, like, that's the important thing. I want to help my community, and that's immediate Orlando community, but also my community of, you know, creative Latin American women and, you know, Latinx people at large. And, you know, now that we have these platforms and these like virtual tools, that it's like, we just can take it anywhere we want, you know. It's like, it's one of those kind of like perfect storm things that aligned.
Oh, thank you so much for all of your insight on that. I think that was really helpful to everybody in the audience. Because I feel like even when getting started with Midwest Design Week, my thought process was, you know, everybody has their own lane within the revolution, and you know, in terms of making change. And like for me, as a co-vice president of a AIGA chapter, like this is my lane, and this is what I can control. You know, I can, you know, promote the BIPOC creatives in my communities. We can, you know, work to do better and set a new standard moving forward. But, you know, everyone's lane is going to look different. Everyone, you know, do what you can, like follow more, you know, BIPOC designers, you know, share them with the world, you know, recommend them to friends and things like that. Like everybody, you don't necessarily have to be on the front lines in order to make change. And I feel like that's like what I really want everyone to understand, is that we all can, you know, contribute and be parts of that. Like no amount is too small that you can do to try to uplift the voices in these communities. So yes. So I think we need to go ahead and start getting some questions in here from the audience. I know I've been seeing the chat go through, and there's been quite a few that have come in. So I don't know if Vanessa, Sarah, or Matt or Mark want to start with any questions that they've pulled from the chat.
A lot of questions were covered,
Okay.
but I think the first one that I saw is, and I think you did talk about this a little bit, but are you open to more chapters joining, and how can other chapters get involved?
Yeah, we're always open to have more of the AIGA chapters involved. Obviously right now we are in the thick of it with our current event. But you know, it's a situation of like the more the merrier. So if there's any here today, like any chapter leaders that want to like reach out, we have our Slack channel on the AIGA Slack, and it's an open Slack. You know, you're welcome to kind of like drop in, kind of, you know, like stock whatever we're doing. But we are hoping to have more programming, create more resources, and have more content available for the public. And again, we cannot have enough people power, so everyone's welcome.
Okay, and then a follow-up to that is, can you talk about the benefit of getting involved with a professional organization like AIGA compared to other meetup groups?
And I think for me, it's you know, the reach that it has, you know, it's national, and you know, I'm still involved with other meetup groups, and it's great to meet local, but with AIGA you have access to a great group of people that are eager to, you know, to do things, to lead, we're a big family. I mean, and this is it, leaders and members, like, which is, I'm seeing now that, especially virtually, how chapters have been, you know, members have attended other chapters events, and meeting people, and things come out of that. It's just that network and that connection of community that it's outside of where you live and where you work, I think is a great, you know, thing to be involved in. Resources, like if I say, hey, I'm looking, you know, I have a member that's looking for a job, a bunch of people, hey, resources, send them to me. You know, that spirit of helping each other out is very much there. And like, hey, you know, I went through this, and someone is a senior designer with an emerging one, like, oh, here, let me give you some tips. You know, we had a mentorship program in San Antonio, and we reached out at a national level, and that has been working great, right? It just, that reach and connection to other people, I think it's really, really valuable.
That's great. I completely agree with that, like 100%. Another question was a two-part question. You kind of touched on it, but what are the goals of Unidos, and what are some of the things you hope to accomplish? Also, what made you choose the name?
Well, we were throwing names together. You created a list of options, but Unidos was the one that just fit best because, I mean, when people think Latinx and Hispanics, they just think that we're one country, which is so not true. Like Ximena comes from Mexico, Reina from Venezuela, and I come from Peru. And it's like, well, we work together, we're united. And it's like, we're trying to unite all of us. And it just speaks to everyone. It's like, we want to be unidos with the world, with all the creatives. It really just branches out to so many possibilities. And it actually makes the hashtag work great because it's like, we are unidos for everyone, unidos for change, unidos for a new future, unidos to make a difference. So, yeah, and I think, Reina, I think you dropped the unidos word in there. Yeah, so we were like, yeah, that makes sense. I love that.
Yeah. Also, it goes back to what I said earlier for the branding. That is, we also want to unite the, what is it, 70 something, 74, 75 chapters that we have. So it's like, you know, in my head, it's like Estados Unidos, like United States. It's like AIGA is united. So it is, can be all of us, it could be a fraction of us, you know, but it's, you know, I think it speaks very holistically of what our intent is. That is, you know, I want to have all my friends together, and I want to make all these friends, and, you know, like, make cool stuff happen.
Yeah, and to answer that first part of the question, what goals do we have for Unidos? We want to be a normal presence in everyday life. Like right now, this multi-chapter effort is being led by Latinx and Hispanics, but there are also non-Hispanics involved, you know, non-Latinx involved. And we want this Unidos to be part of everyone, for our heritage to be just part of everybody's life, so much so that we hope that in the future, Unidos will not be needed because our heritage is everywhere. And that shouldn't be threatening at all. You know, when people think it's like, oh, there's like a takeover. No, there's a benefit to just bringing diversity to everything. I mean, people enjoy our food, people enjoy our music. That's our heritage. We just want to be out there with you. We want to just be part of your life. And we just want to share this love that comes from our culture with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much to all of you, Ximena, Reina, and Dio, for sharing your experiences and your stories with us. I think it's really inspiring to our entire audience, and I hope that, you know, by putting together, you know, this group and your set of Hispanic Heritage Talks, that it's going to really drive home the importance of uplifting these voices in everyone's communities. I feel like we all have very important stories to share with the world, and they haven't been hearing enough of us in the past. So I think it's time that we move forward and set a new standard. So I really appreciate all of you agreeing to participate in this event and wanting to share your experiences with us. I think it's definitely bringing a lot of value to our whole lineup of Midwest Design Week. So thank you. And thank you to all of our attendees for, you know, I love seeing all of the conversations going on in the chat. Thank you for your questions and for engaging, and thank you for coming to today's event. We are at time, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. and just say thank you to everybody, and thank you again to our sponsors for this year's Midwest Design Week. We're on the last day of Design Week, and we've got 2 more events coming up later today. We have a Materials Matter talk led by Jill from Millcraft with a special feature designer, Jermaine Bell, who's going to talk about stationary design. And then this evening, we have our closing keynote with Teresa Moses, Design for Liberation. So it's going to be great. All in all, I believe a lot of the AIGA Unidos organizers are in Slack. So if you have additional questions, feel free to drop them in the Friday channel, and I'm sure they'd be happy to answer them. And then we'll try to collect a lot of these links that we've been posting in here in the channel as well. But thank you so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.